We're live. All right, salutations, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Perspectives Podcast. We are your hosts. My name is Littyyy Bro Flacko. To my side here is it this side or this
It's
side? I
both
don't know.
sides.
Either
It's
one.
both sides.
Both sides. Both sides. Is my lovely fellow host. I don't like using co-host because co-host makes it seem like I'm the host and you're a co-host, and it's just like no.
Is it?
But
I always
then
took it
when
like,
you're co-host and when you both host, it's co-host.
well, because
So
like
it's just like it is
co-parenting would be
co-host.
like the parents
Oh,
working together, so it would be like equal stature. I'm like with
Exactly.
that. Co-host is
Exactly.
equals. They're equals to me.
Yeah, but and then there's like lots of shows that are like there's one person who has host under their name and then the other person has co-host. It's just like, why is he not also a host? Why is there only one person that gets to be the host? Anyway, my fellow host, Holden Stephan Roy. Holden, say hi, Holden.
Hi, Holden.
Yo, we will never leave that one alone. There's certain like things that I'm like, I'm cool with. I'm like, that corny joke is gonna stay with us the entire like history of forever and shit. Like, we're gonna keep on running that bitch until the end. I don't care who doesn't like it. We are here with our illustrious guest, um, EO Dub veteran, uh, New York City indie scene, muse, manager, project coordinator. I'm about to start giving you like all of like my titles from work and shit, right? Like human resources manager and shit.
I've done it. I'm sure I've done it at some
I'm
point.
pretty sure that you've done that at some point. You know what I mean? Um, Miss Miss B, a I'll leave the AKs up to you.
Go
Miss
ahead.
B.
That's your family. Yay. Thank you.
You
Hi.
guys will notice that I call her Shelly, right? Because well,
Fam.
we'll get into all that,
We'll get
right?
there.
Right. So, Shelly, the way that we usually like to start the show is we toot our own horns and we like talk about like our origin story and shit, right? But I think that it's good so that you can get like, like a vibe, a feeling of like, yo, word. Now I understand why you two are together, right? Which is like we're kind of like the odd couple and shit. Definitely on the dub, right? Like I think like out
Mhm.
of all the hosts,
You
like
look
we're
like
like the
lovely
odd couple.
co-hosts to me.
I think so. I think so. I think so. You know? Me and Holden, right? Me and Jess were making Littyyy Bros. Me and Jess and Paulie were making Littyyy Bros Volume 1. And I told Jess to take off this. I'm gonna make this one super personal because you know everybody, right? So like I told Jess, like, I was like, yo, you're not gonna produce on this shit. You're not gonna engineer a single fucking track. Like you can record, like we can record the preliminary sessions together and you could press record button, right? Like, but I don't want you to put any mix on any of these songs. Like, I don't want you to do anything other than fucking rap and be a fucking rapper. You know what I'm saying? So like he abided by that. Like he like took like he was like, all right, Hitler, no problem, right? And like he was down, he let me do that, he let me steer the ship. And so like I got us an engineer, my homeboy, Merker Miyagi from Merker Studios up in Montreal, Canada, right? I got him to mix down the project. And Merker might as well be a New Yorker, I say, right? Always, because he like works with a lot of people out there, but he doesn't promote anybody's shit, right? Because if you promote one person's shit, then you gotta promote everybody's shit, and then next thing you know, you're promoting some trash that you don't really want to be promoting, and you don't want your brand to be associated with, and so like he just doesn't, that's very New Yorker vibes, you know what I mean? Like nah, I just don't promote nobody that I work with type shit. And I didn't ask him to promote us, but he ended up promoting our shit, and that got Holden's attention, right? Because Holden's like, hold on, like Merker don't ever share nobody's shit. You know what I'm
And if we're
saying?
going a little more
So
detailed, it came with one hell of a caption along the lines of, I haven't really partied overnight in New York, but I imagine that this song sounds exactly like what it would if I had. And I'm like, that's a caption. It gets your attention.
gets your
That's
attention.
brilliant.
Right. Right. And so Holden, who also was on the side doing interviews and doing album reviews and doing his own thing on the internet, right? Um he did an album review for the album because it got his attention enough and he liked what he heard, right? Or he liked it enough to review it, right? And so I hate putting words in people's mouths. It makes it sound so flowery. Like, Holden thinks that I'm the greatest rapper on earth. Like, yo, you gotta relax, my guy. Did he even really love it? Like, I don't know. How much did he really play it? Who cares? It doesn't matter. He reviewed the album, right? And so, like, he reviewed the album, and then I'm such a thirst bucket, right? I'm immediately like, hey, we should do an interview together. You know what I mean? And so Holden was like, we should. I was going to ask you that. And I was like, say no more. Let's do it. And sis, after I did that interview with him, yo, no lie, I felt like I went to therapy. I was like, yo, why have I done all these interviews?
Should I go get tissues?
Right? Like, I'm like, why is that I've lived all these years doing this shit professionally, right? Like, doing this shit for real, interview after interview, it's like the same fucking question. You know what I mean? Like, if they know me from battle rap, then it's all fucking battle rap related. If it's not, and it's just indie hip hop, it's like, hey, would you ever do Love and Hip Hop? Or when did you fall in love with hip hop and shit like that? You know what I mean? It's just like, oh my God, shoot me in the fucking head. There's the same shit over and over. And like, I was like, yo, I finally talked about my life. And I was like, yo, this kid is fucking dope. I was like, we should do something. Like, typical New Yorker, right? I'm just like, yo, I got to put all my friends onto this shit. You know what I mean? There's some dope shit I just came up on. Let me put all my friends onto this shit. So I was like, we should do a show together. I'll bring friends to the table. We'll talk to them together. But like, you'll really like handle majority of the interview. You know what I mean? And it's been a fucking fantastic, wonderful journey. We're like a year into this shit.
50 episodes later.
I believe that you are number 50.
It is number 50.
Number 50.
Yeah, it's
2 years. Danny is reminding me that technically speaking, now that we're in the second year, it doesn't matter if I'm the type of person that I wait till the second anniversary to say.
Yeah, me too.
Years.
I would wait till the second anniversary, but
once
we're in year 2.
The first anniversary, you're in year 2, it's your second year.
That's fair.
So Danny's right. Also, Danny's always right.
That's a perspective.
I mean? like, know that shit. You know what I'm saying? There's certain people on this earth that I'm gonna always be like, you know what? I don't really care if she's right or wrong. She's probably right. Yeah. So I'm just going to go with it. You know what I'm saying?
It's just simpler.
So 2 years now that we've been doing this, your episode number 50, fucking dopeness, right? Here we are. We've enjoyed the journey. You know what I mean? Holden has his questions that he likes to open up with, but I like to always like cut that off, right? Like the typical New Yorker cutter offer that I am. And be like, yo, why don't you tell, these are specific, follow my instructions now, all right? Because not everybody follows my instructions on this. Just give the people your name, your aliases, where you are from, and where your parents are from.
All right, I'll follow directions. My government is Michelle Barrientos. In 2000, I started being called Miss B because an artist by the name of Oddity. I was working with him and he told me that my last name was too long. So he just started calling me Miss B. And it worked out because I was engaged to do some sub-promote for somebody. And my boy was like, yo, should I put your whole name on this flyer? I was like, absolutely not. Do not do that. And I was with Odd and he was like, yo, Miss B, put down Miss B. And I was like, fuck it, let me do it. And obviously, 22 years later, it still remains the same. And then, everybody at the Dub knows me as Shelly because of Vice and Ops.
We'll get to that. Don't spoil yet.
So that's the two names that I'm known by.
And then you're from
Manhattan, born and raised. And
what
my
part,
mother,
if you don't mind asking.
Midtown East Side.
Midtown East Side, gangsta shit. If people were to know New York City well, they're like, you come from money, girl.
I come from a mother that worked her ass off and was never home so that I could live in Midtown East Side,
Yeah, it's lit.
She's from Bolivia. She's from La Paz, Bolivia. Yes.
Okay.
She came here in 66, and my dad is from Brownsville, Brooklyn.
Brownsville, Brooklyn. His whole life? And his parents before him?
He's second generation American. I don't know where his dad is from. His mom's side of the family I think is either Polish or Russian. I'm not really sure. My parents got divorced when I was 5 or 6. And I knew that side of the family, but not, I was raised by my mom and my uncle. So, everything.
So you know what you tell people, like, as far as like when they ask you what your race is.
I just say, I usually keep it as Bolivian or South American, just because that's the culture that I was, in my home. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Word.
I only found out about the Polish part literally, I think like a month ago. I did one of those, I put in my father's name in one of these like websites, and I found the information they tell you'll find. I never believed it. And I was like, shit, I'm Polish. I was like, I had no fucking idea.
You had no idea. So, you're like now you're thinking to yourself, like, what do I have to start doing with Polish people? What am I celebrating here? What are we doing? What am I cooking? So what am I learning how to make?
Yeah. So that's me.
Also, by the way, very cute. All the people who are not rappers, right? So Olivier, you guys are wild cute when you guys talk about like what people know you as, like, because you guys go about it in this like I don't know why or how I ended up with like a name that like people call me, and it's just like it's the scene that you're in. We give aliases to everybody. Everybody's got a rapper name, like. Even if you're not a rapper, you're a fucking graphic designer, you're a video guy. Like, everybody gets the fucking name.
I mean,
you're never like.
It's true though. Or if it's not even your like, because even if you take graphic design, it's just the government name, and there's the weird name you picked for your business that's like 987 Graphic Productions, and that's also your alias in the same way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Facts. All right, Holden, we got
the opening question. It's a little bit of a story. I'm gonna run through it, and when it lands, you can start talking about it. Running your side of it. But keep in mind when you do that, when you feel the need to say something like "nah, I mean," nah, we don't know what you mean. We are not all from New York, and none of this is inherent to us. That means you're going into some New York shit. We don't know what you mean.
Nobody else knows outside of New York.
It's the facts of it. But with that. It all starts with my girlfriend, and she's washing the dishes one time, and she got her phone open, and she's playing that Black Eyed Peas song. The I got a feeling, ooh. She's vibing, she's dancing, she's doing her thing. And I had this realization. I'm like, when in the fuck did this song become chores music? Right? Like, if you take this song, you run it back like 10, 11 years, it's going to be some middle of the night vibes. Everybody's partying, celebrating, having a great time. You run that song up to the present day. The song doesn't change at all because it's a song, but we as people evolve over the years, and the relationship and the context upon which we play this song has changed to a point where we put it on when we're doing some boring shit like working out or, doing some chores or whatever, and we want to run it back in our minds to the happy days of when we were having fun back then. And I was like, that's a wild thought. And I started thinking about the young ones, the 20-year-olds clubbing, doing their thing, and they have no idea that this is the soundtrack to their future chores music, or that when I come up on their music, like, I'll be washing the dishes to Pop Smoke now. It's just kind of how it goes in life. And that all matters because, like Flacko was saying a bit before, if you think about a lot of the musical journeys of artists and the interviews and the way people talk about it, it seems like everybody starts their shit at like 12 years old. Like I'm like 11 and I discovered this at this time, or I started writing rhymes when I'm 10 years old, and it's almost like nothing in life ever happened before that. But I'm like, when it comes to music, it's impossible that nothing happened before that. Like, there's a good chance you come out in the hospital, there'd be like some song playing in the room, little baby Miss B is absorbing those energies. You might not remember that, fair enough. But like, I know that when I'm like 5 years old up in Montreal, Basically, we're in the apartment and my dad's got these gray boxes all over, the preamp, the amp, the tape deck, the radio, all the things with the little wires going around the room, giving us that ghetto surround sound system. And it was nice. He would play his Led Zeppelin tapes and things like that throughout the daytime. At the nighttime, the club music would be playing live over the radios. My mom, she was more into discos and musicals, and there was the Disney musics and all these different vibes and sounds and all this shit that was around me that I had no control over, that highly influenced my whole life when it came to music. So I was hoping, Miss B, you could run us back to the youngest Miss B you could remember being and tell us what it sounded like to be you before you had any control over the music.
Wow. You know, I'll say that I grew up, I mean, music is probably the biggest memory I have of my childhood and starting very young. And honestly, I was in control of the music in my house from a very young age. You know, I had the sound system in my bedroom was like a quadraphonic sound with the tape deck, the record player, the receiver. And it was because, you know, my mom didn't speak to me in English because she didn't want me to have an accent. And she just figured, you know, I'd learn English because I'm American, I go to school. So it was important for her to just speak to me in Spanish. And so she bought me these bedtime stories that, like, you know, the Cinderella, Snow White, the Three Little Pigs, whatever. They came with a cassette so that you played the cassette and she would sit next to me and it would make a little whistle and you knew when to flip the page. So because I had this enormous sound system in my room, you know, I had a collection of my mom's vinyl and my uncle's vinyl in my room. I was just always listening to music. So I guess, you know, I was exposed to several different kinds of music. There was always rock, disco, Latin music. As a little girl, I remember when I would have, what's it called? An allowance. There's a Crazy Eddie's up the block from my house.
What's a Crazy Eddie's?
Crazy Eddie's was Crazy Eddie's. There used to be music stores out in the streets before the internet. So Crazy Eddie's was a music store where you bought records and cassette singles.
Like Tower Records. Or,
you know, but Crazy Eddie's was like the beginning of that.
Everything.
So I used to.
He was before the Wiz, even, right?
Like, oh my God! Before Coconuts, before HMV, all that.
Yeah. Word.
And they sold like electronics too. But you know, the music, it was like my playground. You know, if you gave me $5, I didn't want to go to Toys R Us. I wanted to go to Crazy Eddie's. So
that's
you
hilarious.
Know, that was always big. You know, music.
So you just
from little.
Like, you're just like a tiny one out there getting your allowance, copying records and tapes and stuff, building out your collection. And did you... And
like very, very young.
And did you have aspirations of singing or getting involved in music in some way, or was it more from like a fan perspective?
I started dancing when I was 5. I went to a professional children's school, Frank Hatchett, Broadway Dance Center. Frank passed away, but it's a well-known dance school here in New York. And what happened is that as a little girl, I was about 4 years old, and my mom noticed that I had an intern when I walked. And we went to a doctor, and they told her that I would need surgery on my hips to make my feet straight. And she was like, bullshit, we're putting her in ballet. And she took me to the best dance school. And I literally started dancing at 5 years old, ballet. And now I don't walk like this anymore. But I started dancing ballet, tap, jazz. At very young, I danced until I was 13. So again, that also exposed me to tons of different music. I went to Broadway shows all the time. You know,
Which Broadway shows?
Live music was my...
Like, which are your some that you like? Which do you like remember as being the coolest ones? Let's like make them more specific.
Cats, and I know like to Broadway people, that's like the grossest one, but I mean, I think my mom took me to a million matinees because you could go right before the show and get like a $20 ticket. um, uh, I'm looking at Soza's comments. Anyway, yeah. There was one Starlight Express, and it was a Broadway show where all the characters were wearing rollerblades. So they were like roller skating, rollerblading on stage, and there were these ramps into the audience. I mean, out of it shit. I wasn't into plays. I didn't have the attention span. Later on, I tried acting, but you know, I just loved to dance and I loved music. So that was always in my environment.
So you went to dancing school and you hit Broadway as you're a little one. That's like your childhood, is going to dancing school and going to Broadway shit.
I mean, she wasn't far from like her area that she said she was born into, Midtown East Side, is like a stone's throw. Like
I was not far from Times Square.
The neighboring neighborhood is Times Square and Broadway. So like it makes like real good sense that like, you know, if that was
so
her,
like I totally like get that geographically it makes sense, but like if you're not from New York or something, like yo, it's just a wild thought to think that Broadway is your movie theater the way I would go to the movie theater, but it's just legitimately. And I saw and that's like, I mean, I don't even know how much I'd really want to go to musicals that much. Like I looked at all the stuff on Broadway recently, and there was like a one or two that I was like, okay, maybe, but like, just the idea of it.
Oh, so you're like me?
Yeah, Bonnie's more into Broadway stuff. And like she like, oh my gosh, she would have loved that. Like she so loves musicals, and like
she would have loved it, right?
Like Bonnie, absolutely. And there's so many people I know that like just. But for you, it's like, nah, that's just like growing up. That's just like regular shit. Like that's a wild thought.
My mom, I mean, I used to be taken, like my uncle took me to concerts at Radio City at like the spur of the moment. You know, my mom told me that I went to I went to see some concert my mom took me to, and I had an apple in my hand and I stood on the chair because I got so excited and dropped my apple. And she could hear the apple like rolling down the whole theater, like drum, 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 drum. She had to grab me down, but I would get so excited. Like I loved seeing music live. That was my thing. Dope. That was my thing.
That's a really cool thing to have. So your whole like
that's amazing. Yeah, no, it's also very different than all of our guests.
All right? Super like, different. Like
we do. They're all that we have a wide ranging, you know. Sets of like stories, right? Like not everybody's the same story, but there are when it comes to like the New Yorkers.
No, I'm gonna say like
from our era,
even
kind of like
bigger than that.
Stories blend together. You know what I mean? It's the same type of thing.
Yo, but it's
like nobody ever brought up like yo.
Nobody. I be talking to like all kinds of people, rappers, beat makers, da-da-das, whatever. But you're like an event curator / booker. Nobody knows the history of event curators. Maybe it's just y'all had super different. No, I mean it like from my perspective, but in general, it's not like people be wildly documenting fucking event curator journeys.
No, you're right. Let me tell you something. Let me tell you something. I'm really angry that New York City's club history isn't more well documented, right? Like there's this whole like Limelight, Palladium, and the Tunnel should have like a museum like somewhere, and like people can understand maybe how it looked and what was in there, and like the amount of like work that went into all that and the people behind it. And so like, yeah, he's like, it sounds funny, right?
Like it does, but like
nobody knows the history of like event curators, but
like maybe it's like
nobody does know this
maybe
shit.
Like if we went down event curator land, it would all be similar shit. Like we would find out that event curators are people that went to a shit ton of events when they were young rather than being the performers when they were young, you know? Like
all the event curators in New York City are like, oh man, fuck, everybody comes with like the play story, and it's like after like the 10th interview. We're like, all right, we've heard enough about the fucking plays already. Jesus Christ. Everybody in this world just fucking grows up going to play.
No, but that's super cool. Like, and I honestly just talking to an
first, so we're all excited.
and like for me, it's an exciting idea, right? Because like I've dabbled with event curation. It's miserable. So the fact that you enjoy doing it is like, wow, you know things. You understand this
conclusions and shit.
Well,
No, I love it.
I assume
so
nobody does anything for 23 years that they don't love. That's my theory.
Facts, also.